Let's talk about how you're going to become the best freelancer in the world for your niche. The answer to this question is you're going to learn your niche and dive into their world so you can expect and read their minds better than anyone else out there. If you do this, if you get into their heads and know them better than anyone else out there, you'll be better, you'll create better marketing because you'll know exactly what they want, what they need, what they're passionate about, and how to convince them and how to sell to them, but also how to create solutions for them, how to package your work for them, and how to really solve their problems. So let's talk about what's the research that you need to know in order to know them better than anyone else around there. The first thing that you will want to know is learn who the important players in that niche are. And so that means who are the world-class companies who are doing the best job in the world, both globally and locally. In every industry, there's a few companies that everybody is looking up to, and they're inspired by what they're doing, and everybody wants to be exactly like them. So you need to learn about them. You need to know, because probably when you'll have conversation with your customers, those companies will a lot of times be brought up, and you can bring them out as examples if they're doing something good, or if you think you can do something different from them. But a lot of times you need to know the context of who they are looking up to. So you want to know them, you want to list them, and you want to start following these companies. Now, the second one is every industry, every niche has its own celebrities. So that might be the founders of the companies, that might be some thought leaders, that might be some experts within those niches. And you want to get to know those celebrities are. So you want to know their stories. You want to know who they are. You want to keep in touch with them. Again, this is to give you context. This is to give you, to learn about their problem, to know what's hot, to want to know what is trending within this niche, and also to perhaps build a relationship with these celebrities. And again, every niche, even if this niche he might seem obscure to you, it has its own famous people, respected people, experts. I call them celebrities, but again, they might be just experts or highly regarded people within that industry. So you want to make sure that you're following them on social media, or if they don't have social media, maybe they have a book, maybe they have a podcast. You want to make sure that you consume the information that they're putting out there, because a lot of times this is going to give you a key insight into that niche, into what do they care about, how do they talk, what their problems are. So you want to make sure you consume your information from those highly regarded people within those industries. So that's the first step. The first step is understanding who the big players are, getting yourself familiarized with them, consuming their information, and making sure that you're learning about that niche. The second thing is you want to understand, in the context of them hiring you or doing projects together with you, you need to know who the decision makers are. Okay, so who is actually going to hire you? It really depends on the niche, so it's not the same for different niches. So for me, for example, when I work with startups, a lot of times I would work with the founder or actually CEO of the company, so I know that I need to build my relationship with them. But sometimes when other people are working with a slightly larger companies, maybe they're working with the head of sales, or maybe if they're working on a website, they're working with the head of IT. So that's different. And a lot of times the process of how you're being brought on to the project is different in different industries, in different niches. So you need to understand, who do you need to start building relationship with. Now, I'm not talking about relationship as in try to sell to them right now, but we are working on a long-term process right now, which is building your expertise and domination of you within that niche. And so because you already know who those people are, and what are the great companies, and who are the people that are maybe eventually going to hire you, you want to start building relationship with them. And again, building a relationship can start off by just following them on social media and maybe commenting on their work and being helpful, or sending them some ideas or resources that you think can be helpful for them. But you want to start building relationship, not as in, hello, I'm a designer, please hire me, but how can we interact in a meaningful way that also brings value to them. Now, the next thing is you need to really immerse yourself in understanding their problems, because this is a lot of what your sales pitch is going to be about, and also how you structure your solution. So you really need to know what their problems are, okay? Because nobody really needs a rebranding or a new logo or a new website. Everybody is doing that because they're trying to solve for something in their business. Okay, so how do you know what they're really struggling with or trying to solve for? So first of all, you're going to look in the news. What are they writing about in that specific industry? Because a lot of times what they will be writing about in the news is what they're actually struggling with or what they're trying to do, or when there is an innovation, it's usually an innovation to solve their pain. So when you keep up with the news about that specific industry, a lot of times it will give you insight into what they're struggling with right now. And a lot of times they will be writing about this in the industry blogs, okay? So what you want to look for is you want to look for the how to, right? Because when a lot of times when an industry is struggling with something, and again, I will give you an example from the startup world. So a lot of times startups will try to improve conversion. So you will see a lot of blog posts or news headlines that has something similar to how to increase conversions on your landing page. Now, you know that because they need how-to manuals for how to increase conversions, that conversions is something that they're struggling with, and it's a priority for them, and that's why they're creating content about how to solve that pain point. Now you understand that it's a pain point. Now you start thinking about how you can, talk about working with you to solve that specific pain. Now, you want to understand where they hang out, and hang out, I mean both online and offline, right? You want to know where they are as a community, and every industry and every niche has their own communities, okay? Sometimes it's different platforms. Some communities are very active on Instagram, others are on Facebook groups, others are on LinkedIn, other ones actually have offline meetups. So the platform of where you're going to start communicating and learning and building relationship with your niche is very different depending on the niche that you picked. Now, how do you find out those, where they hang out? I use Google, as I use for a lot of times, and I would just write kind of like, what are the best blogs for residential architects, best blogs for residential architects, best architecture podcast, best events for architects, if again architecture is my niche, for example. So you use that to do a research, and then you find out what is the most popular blog, what is the most popular podcast, what is the biggest Facebook group. When you find them, you can start joining them, you can start following them, and you can start learning more about it. So you want to make sure that you join these groups or meetups if you can attend them, if you can go to these events. Those are really great place both to learn and also to create relationships. Now, you want to use those information to, where they hang out to learn, but you also want to join the conversation when you can be helpful, answer questions. Again, not in a salesy way. You're not trying to sell anything at this point, but you do want to be part of the conversation. You do want people to know that you're a helpful person and that you are a part of this community, because that's your goal, to become part of this community of people. The last framework that I want to talk about is the framework for jobs to be done. And basically what that means is that every company or a project has some kind of a life cycle, okay? Some kind of step by step of something that happens within that company. And if you know that, you can fit your messaging and your services to that. So I know that sounds a little bit vague right now, so I will give you an example from my industry and my niche, which is startups. So the life cycle of a startup usually looks something like this, and look at the bottom of this graph. Usually they're just starting up, they're raising money or they're building some kind of a prototype, and then they're in a pre-launch phase where they need to build hype while they're actually building the product. Then there's the phase where they're actually building the project. Then they're launching the product, and then they're trying to grow their company. Now, if you look above the graph, you can see that at every stage of that company's life cycle, they actually need something else, from me, or in terms of design. So at the beginning, they need an investor deck, which is basically, a presentation to help them raise money, and they need some mock-ups, even though they still don't have a product. They need a little bit of market research. They need a brand. And then when they're in the pre-launch, they need a landing page, or maybe they need some campaigns to do some validation. Maybe they need a video. When they're in the product development, they need somebody to design their product. So they need UX research, UI, front-end development. And then, as you can see, at different stages, they do different things. Now, at this part, we are in the learning phase. Remember, we're trying to learn as much as possible on our niche. Now, as part of my research, I learned that this is what they need, and this is how it works, and this is their life cycle, right? Now, every company, no matter what your niche, has some kind of a life cycle, right? If you're in the real estate development niche, then every real estate project has probably a life cycle that's something like this, right? They start with an initiation of the project, and then I'm not into real estate, so I don't know what the process looks like. But whatever your niche is, you need to learn how that process looks like, so that you can understand where do you fit in this process, right? When do you start selling to them? Because you need to understand what happened before and what happens afterwards. Now, for me, that I think that something good that I do is I get in when they just start, so I focus on selling them at the start point. But then, because we created a relationship, I'm in the position to keep helping them as they go along. So I do encourage you to do your research to understand where your best entry point is, so that you can position yourself so you can sell for your entry point, but then later on keep serving them as the process keeps going.